Welcome to the Verts Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Sonny Weaver. Some of you guys will notice tonight that I am riding solo. Not a huge deal. I can carry the show. I did it for a couple seasons with Tout. Can I get an amen? That's what I thought. So what we're going to do tonight is, as the season's wrapping up and we're heading into the playoffs, we're going to do a quick review of all the divisions, get a look at the final standings, talk about some things that need to be done in the offseason. Then we'll come back and we will do a quick playoff preview and hopefully go through the picks for this playoff season. We're going to start off tonight in the AFC East. The AFC East, the final standings are the 12-4 Buffalo Bills are taking the division. The New England Patriots fell just short at 9-7. The New York Jets are 8-8 with the Miami Dolphins trailing up the end at 5-11. So let's start from the bottom and work our way up. The Miami Dolphins, what a season they had. It was a cluster. They had a couple good wins this season. They got the win over Buffalo. I think the one thing that's got to be looked at coming into next year is Jordan Cameron's leading your team in reception yards. When you have a tight end that is 200 yards better than your next best wide receiver, something tells me there's something wrong in the passing game there. It sounds like Logan Thomas is the guy moving forward. Who knows what that means for Ryan Tannehill. Lamar Miller is sitting there with 847 yards, had a pretty decent season, but this team looks like it's going to need to figure out the passing game going forward for next year. The New York Jets had a good turnaround, 8-8. They just missed out on the playoffs, had some good battles down the end. They actually ended the 9-7 New England Patriots season, and I think you can hear that plane crashing right about now. So, the Patriots and the Jets, I think, are both contenders next year for the playoffs. They just fell a little short this year. I think the Patriots, probably looks like Brady's going to retire in New England, which works out there. And talking about the passing game, the New York Jets, Bryce Petty had a great year, coming up just short of the passing title. He did lose that to Andy Dalton. What I can say there is, though, that the Jets and Patriots will be formidable in the AFC going forward. Finally, the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, 12-4, like I said, have some pretty solid wins this year. They're going to get the first round bye. We'll find out more about who they're going to face down the road. But one thing that can't be denied is the job that Tyrod Taylor did this year. It looks like he may win the MVP this year. Probably the most important and impressive thing about Tyrod Taylor is his efficiency with the ball. 71% completion percentage. One thing I would be a little bit nervous about is roughly half those yards are to tight ends and halfbacks. So Taylor's taking care of the ball, not really pushing it downfield. Trying not to make a bunch of mistakes, but not necessarily trying to win the game. So that is something that we'll watch going forward a little bit. The next division is the AFC North. AFC North, the final standings were the Baltimore Ravens at 8-8, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 9-7, Cleveland Browns at 9-7, and the Cincinnati Bengals at 11-5. The Baltimore Ravens missed out just barely at the end of the year being in the playoff hunt. They lost a heartbreaker to the Cincinnati Bengals. 40 seconds left in the game. Fourth down, 1 yard to go, I believe. Cincinnati Bengals flexed out Jeremy Hill. No one covered him. They threw the bomb, and they ended up winning the game. So it was a heartbreaking way for the Ravens to lose, but they will be contenders for the rest of the foreseeable future. One thing to note in this division is there was nobody with a losing record. Very balanced and competitive division, and that leads into the next two, the Cleveland Browns and Pittsburgh Steelers, both at 9-7. The Cleveland Browns ended up making it in the playoffs based on criteria. They do have the wins over the Pittsburgh Steelers, a better conference record, or division record, I should say. Steelers and Browns both sitting at 9-7. The Steelers, the interesting thing there is Ben Roethlisberger and his 30 touchdowns but 30 interceptions. They got to take care of the ball better if they want to really be a contender. The other kind of, I would say, letdown is probably the running game. Le'Veon Bell should be one of the best backs in the NFL, but with only 847 yards, really not showing it, just averaging 5.1 yards a carry. Looking to the Cleveland Browns, they're probably going to match up with the Cincinnati Bengals in a rematch, round one. The Bengals and Browns met a couple times this year, with the Bengals winning that 2-0 as far as the series so far. I believe the Bengals outscored the Browns something like 71-30. So you're looking at a series that is heavily favoring the Bengals right now. But as we know, momentum can shift greatly in these things. And so the Bengals won't take the Browns lightly, but that first round matchup should be an interesting one. But obviously I'm going to lean towards my Cincinnati Bengals in that. Next up is the AFC South. The division champion here is the Jacksonville Jaguars. As crazy as that's going to end up sounding, they're 11-4 right now. They do have a game this week versus the Houston Texans yet to be played, but if all things hold true, they will win that division at 11-5. They're followed closely by the Indianapolis Colts at 11-5, Tennessee Titans at 6-10, and the Houston Texans at 2-13. Couple interesting notes from this division. The Houston Texans, I think they are maybe underrated by many people. They had some good games this year. Lost a couple heartbreakers. I know against Cincinnati they were leading coming out of halftime, kind of lost that lead later on. But tough team that I think they need to work on finding some offense going forward. The tight end leads the team in receptions and yards, so maybe working a little bit in the offseason on finding some guys a little deeper downfield. I know the Houston Texans also lead the league in sacks allowed, so they may be looking to either get rid of the ball quicker or improve that offensive line. Tennessee Titans had a couple good wins this year at 6-10. They're a team that needs some improvement. There were some questions about Marcus Mariota at one point during the season with Zach Mettenberger on the bench. I think that's something still yet to be determined as to who the future starter is there. The Titans, they're going to need to do some work in the offseason. They've got holes to be filled. You don't go from the number 2 overall team to the top that quickly. Bishop Sankey only having 573 yards. 3 yards a carry is not a good way to help any young quarterback, so they're going to have to work those things out quickly. So now we're down to the last 2 teams in this division, the Jacksonville Jaguars and Indianapolis Colts, both presumably at 11-5. The Colts had a pretty good year this year. Not much in terms of a running game, although T.Y. Hilton put up some nice numbers at wide receiver, 931 yards, 6 TDs. Dante Moncrief had 707 yards, 7 TDs. So that's a pretty much an aired out offense. Andrew Luck had a decent year, not a great year, but the running game may be something that's an issue in the playoffs. You throw to put up points, but you run to win the game, and I'm not sure the Colts are going to be able to hang on with that running game to do much. Now, when you look at the inverse here, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars, Blake Bortles only threw for 2,870 yards this year, 30 TDs, but they were real dependent on the running game. If you look at the games they lost this year, it really came down to if they couldn't get the ball moving on the ground, they weren't going to win the game. You got T.J. Yeldon, 963 yards, 17 TDs, 4.8 yards a carry, and Denard Robinson with another 493 yards and 7 TDs. So this is a team that's really built around the run. I worry about their ability to make up large deficits if they get into a shootout, but that's a team that definitely can make some damage in the playoffs. The next stop on our Around the Division tour is the AFC West. The AFC West was won by the Kansas City Chiefs at 10-6. The Denver Broncos followed up at 7-9 with the Chargers 4-12 and the Raiders at 3-13. The division started out really rocky. Early on, no one could get a win, but I think they started to find their groove a little bit towards the back end of the year. The Broncos finished on a 5-game winning streak, I do believe, including some good wins. One win over the Bengals, I know for sure. So look for the Broncos to figure things out next year. It looks like Manning's done in Denver. Mike Glennon's going to take over there, and a couple more weapons, and that's going to be a dangerous team. The Oakland Raiders got a big win in the last week of the season over the Kansas City Chiefs, which pushed the Chiefs down to the 4th seed in the playoffs. I look for the Raiders to improve. They need some help in the secondary. The offense is starting to figure things out. Derek Carr's thrown far too many interceptions, though. Definitely going to have to cut down on those interceptions. Probably need another weapon there for Amari Cooper to not be the main focus all the time. But that is another team that I think, with another year or two, could probably turn things around. And the person I feel for in that division is the San Diego Chargers. The San Diego Chargers took a lot of teams this year to the wire, but just always came out on the other end. I think the Chargers are going to be okay if they can figure out how to win games. And why that sounds like a tough thing, they just got to figure out how to close them out. Phillip Rivers had a great year, 3,500 yards passing, 24 TDs. Melvin Gordon as a rookie, 1,100 yards, 9 TDs. The offense can do what they need to do to score. The defense needs some work, gives up a lot of points, and honestly, a lot of those points come at the end of the game. So if they can learn how to close out games, they can find their way into a winning record very soon. The Kansas City Chiefs win this division at 10-6. They started out hot, kind of fade down the stretch. I'm a little worried about them heading in the playoffs. RG3 having a pretty average year. You got the ball disbursement on this team's kind of crazy because you got D'Anthony Thomas leading the team with 675 yards when you would hope that's Jeremy Maclin. Travis Kelce's nowhere to be seen with only 450 yards. So I'm a little worried about the weapons there. Jamal Charles, 1,000 yards rushing. He's going to do what Jamal Charles does. Also dangerous out of the backfield, so watch him. It's a team that they're dangerous in the playoffs. I just don't know if they've got what it takes to win in the playoffs. So they're a team that we're definitely going to want to watch, but I'm not going to count on them to do a whole hell of a lot. So what we're going to do here real quick is we're going to take a break before rolling into the NFC, and we're going to have a quick break for shots fired.
Shots fired with your host, player partner. Let's talk about gameplay. Number one, if you schedule a game, make sure you show up. Don't have somebody waiting 30, 40 minutes or maybe a whole day. That's just ignorant. If you ain't got more sense than to just PM your opponent, let them know you're going to be late or you're not showing up, it don't take but a minute. Quit being selfish. Otherwise, go find another league. Nobody got time to wait on you motherfuckers. Shit. Nobody babysitting. Another thing, gameplay. What's up with this damn gameplay, man? I'm talking about you guys that like to mess with the AI. It ain't cool. It's called fag ball. You don't want to be a fag, don't play fag ball. Taking your quarterback and then standing him straight up at the line of scrimmage without dropping him back in the 3, 5, or 7-step drop back. And you set him up straight up at the line of scrimmage, that fucks with the AI. You know what I mean. Everybody know what I mean. And the quarterback's in shotgun when you drop him back. Number one, your quarterback is already 7 yards deep. Then I see you guys who like to take the quarterback and drop him back another 5 yards. And then that's 12 yards from the line of scrimmage. Then you're dropping back 5 more yards. And now you're talking about 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage. In a real game, your ass to be sacked. But since this is Madden, EA, and they don't know how to fucking build a game, y'all get away with that shit. In football, motherfuckers drop straight back past 7 yards, 10 yards, he's sacked. That's why they step up in the pocket or they slide from side to side. Not all that take baby step here, you back 5 yards, and then you try to baby step again and you're another 5 yards back. Next thing you know, you 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That shit's weak too. I'm just saying, man, if you're going to be seeing. Otherwise, fuck you. Player partner out.
Shots fired.
That was another great segment by our friend Playa. I encourage anybody who's interested in doing a segment for the Verts podcast to reach out, contact me, Sonny Weaver, with an idea. We're always looking for new content for the Verts podcast. All right, so let's jump right back in here. The NFC. We got the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Washington Redskins, and the New York Giants in the NFC East. This division, while not great record-wise, was competitive down to the end. The 5-11 Giants struggled. Eli Manning's got to figure out some things there. Threw a lot of interceptions, threw a lot of balls. I know the wide receivers having some drops issues there. But that's a team that really should be better off competing. May want to find a little bit more of a running game. Rashad Jennings may not be the answer there, but that's something that Tom Monteith will work out as we go. 6-10, the Washington Redskins. They're a team. They were pretty quiet during the season. I'm not real sure what direction they're going to go there. They traded RG3 before the season started. You may be looking at a quarterback at some point in the offseason, whether that's free agency or the draft. They've got issues up and down the line. And I do mean line. The line could use some work, but when you're 27th in offensive points, 28th in yards, 30th in passing, 10th in rushing, you're going to have to find a way to put points on the board. Kirk Cousins isn't the answer. Alfred Morris had a decent year, but that's another place where they're going to have to get that offense in check. The defense, pretty good, 7th in points, 5th in yards allowed, 3rd in passing yards, and 24th in rushing yards allowed. Makes it a pretty formidable defense, but that offense is going to have to get on track if they want to compete in the division. Next up, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles at 8-8. They were right there down the wire. Late win by the Dallas Cowboys sealed the division for them, but the Eagles were in the hunt. The Eagles just re-signed Sam Bradford. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. 7th in rushing yards. DeMarco Murray had a good year, but 24th in points and 22nd in yards. Not a very dynamic offense. The defense held up okay. They're pretty much 12th to 15th across the board in all stats, so the defense isn't the issue there. It's the offense. Now it'll be interesting to see what Sam Bradford does now that he got paid. And last in the division is, first for that matter, the Dallas Cowboys, 9-7. I think the Cowboys are onto something. Tony Romo had a pretty good year, 3,369 yards, 24 TDs. They were 12th in the league in passing yards, 13th in total yards, 9th in rushing yards. So the offense not horrible. Little concerned about the points only being 19th. The defense there is my issue. They're in the bottom third of the league in every category. Christian Michael had a great year running the ball. Tony Romo can throw the ball. It's just a question, can they stop anybody? And that's what we're going to find out in the playoffs early on. The NFC North, led by the undefeated Detroit Lions. Those guys, all they do is win. 16-0. We're going to find out how that translates into the playoffs. The rest of the division finished below 500. You got the 7-9 Chicago Bears, 7-9 Minnesota Vikings, and 6-10 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers at 6-10, while it's a little misleading, they were in some tough battles, especially with the Detroit Lions. I think that's a team that could be on the rise going forward. Really nothing to talk about stats-wise on either side. They're pretty much 20th on offense across the board, mid-teens on defense. Nothing great. Aaron Rodgers just under 3,000 yards passing, 15 TDs. The rushing game, Eddie Lacy really never got off the ground, 758 yards. Lachey Seastrunk at 238. Randall Cobb had a nice year with 868 yards. But if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I'm probably looking to shore up the defense more than anything. The offense will have its time, but I think they want to cut down on turnovers, maybe play a more conservative role on offense of ball control. So they're a team to be dealt with going forward, but I'm thinking it's going to take them some time to get adjusted. Minnesota Vikings, 7-9. Another kind of decent year. Their offense wasn't great. Middle of the pack offense, middle of the pack defense, nothing right homebound. Teddy Bridgewater, 3,000 yards, 25 passing touchdowns, not bad. Adrian Peterson, 929 yards, had a good season, 4.3 yards a rush. What concerns me about AP is only 4 touchdowns. They're going to have to find a way to punch it in when they get close, and they got to stay with the running game. I think they may be getting too cute with the passing game in the red zone, so that's something to work on in the offseason. Nice spread across the wide receivers. Teddy Bridgewater is distributing the ball well. That's a team that I think they just need to kind of pick an identity and go with it, and they'll be okay going forward. Also at 7-9 Chicago Bears, while there was some ownership changeover in the season, the new owner I think is going to get things straightened out there. Seems like a bright guy with a good head on his shoulder going forward. What they're going to have to figure out this year is what to do with Jay Cutler. You've got Cutler, 2,680 yards, 11 TDs, but what's got to be concerning there is the 25 INTs. Sounds like they're going to be looking for a quarterback in the draft. A lot will depend on how that goes. Rumors are Matt Forte will be released in the offseason, let him explore other options. So you may be looking at a whole new rebuilt offense, which that's not a bad thing. They're towards the bottom of the league in offense. The defense doesn't fare much better. It's a team that's going to take some time to rebuild, but I think we've got the right ownership in place to do that. So that leaves us with the Detroit Lions at 16-0, and I believe I did mention this early in the season that I thought the Detroit Lions would be the NFC representative for the Super Bowl, and I'm standing by that. Matthew Stafford is fighting for the MVP this year. He's throwing right around 70% completion, 29 TDs, I believe 23 INTs. Having a good year. The one concern I have about this Lions offense is, can they run the ball? You know, Joique Bell's got 423 yards. Amir Abdallah has 358 yards. It's not a dynamic running attack. If they get up big, I question if they're going to be able to hold on to the ball long enough to seal the game. The one thing they have on their side is a defense that is only allowing 10 points a game, which is first in the league, only giving up 169.9 yards, which is first in the league. So if there's a team that can hold a lead, it's going to be this team. I just worry that the running game is not going to be able to get enough time off the clock for that to happen. Next up, we got the NFC South. The NFC South is a very competitive division this year. You've got the Atlanta Falcons at 13-3, Carolina Panthers at 12-4, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-9, and the Saints were 0-16. So let's start with the Saints. Drew Brees is kind of at the end of his life cycle. Defense has got some questions. This thing is a blow it up, rebuild project. I think, the owner's going to take a long, hard look at what they're doing there. The one nice thing is he gets to mold it in his own vision, but a lot of work to be done in New Orleans. Tampa Bay at 7-9 kind of had a ho-hum season. You got the first overall pick in the NFL, had a pretty good year, 3,200 yards, 19 TDs for Jameis Winston. As a rookie, he threw a lot of interceptions, 28 INTs, but that'll get better with time. The offense overall was about a middle of the pack offense to good offense. I wouldn't write home about it, but it wasn't horrible. I think they've got a good thing going down there in Tampa Bay. Hopefully they can get things kind of righted a little bit better and be in contention, but that's going to be a tough division to do that in. I would like to point out that Doug Martin kind of had a resurgence after a bad last couple years. His rookie year was a standout year, but 1,057 yards, 6 TDs, 4 yards carry. It's nice to see Doug Martin back in the fold there in Tampa Bay. So your two playoff teams, the Atlanta Falcons, the number 2 seed at 13-3, and the Carolina Panthers, who is a wild card. These teams had a great year. Both teams maybe somewhat of a surprise, especially the Atlanta Falcons, to go from top 5 pick to getting that bye week. That's a big deal. I think the Falcons have things kind of going in the right direction down there. They've basically got a top 10 offense. Matt Ryan having a really good year. Tevin Coleman, 1,000 yards for a rookie, 16 TDs. He's in the hunt for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Julio Jones, a 1,000-yard receiver, 12 TDs. That's a team I think that's going to be dangerous in the playoffs. They've got a very good defense as well, ranked in the top 10 in most categories. So be on the lookout for the Atlanta Falcons. But don't sleep on the Panthers. The Panthers had a really good season. I think what the Panthers are going to have to figure out is can they score when they need to? The defense is tough, but can they score when they need to? They had a decent year on the offensive side of the ball. I worry a little bit about their offensive line, especially when they get a little later in the playoffs to see some better pass rushing. But I think the Panthers, they're going to be a formidable opponent in the playoffs. So the last division to cover today, NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks, Arizona Cardinals, St. Louis Rams. Tough division, 11-5 for the 49ers, 10-6 for the Seahawks, 7-9 for the Cardinals, and 6-10 for the Rams. Rams are a little bit of a letdown for me. They've got one of the best defensive lines in football. I really wanted to see a little bit more out of that defense. The defense finished middle of the pack, top 5 in rushing yards, but not what I really was hoping for out of that defense. The offense, Nick Foles isn't the answer there. Only 1,800 yards for the year. They're going to have to figure that out. Todd Gurley had a good year, 888 yards, 10 TDs. They need some work on the offensive line and definitely going to have to find a replacement for Foles. I think it comes down to they just don't have the weapons on the outside to make Foles really excel in what he's doing. So my hope is that they get some more offensive weapons and the defense shores some things up and they can find a way to make a playoff push next year. Arizona Cardinals 7-9. This team, it had some high spots and low spots. I think Palmer's probably on the back half of his career, and they're going to be looking for a quarterback. The running game never really got going with Chris Johnson. Split some time with Andre Ellington. This is a team that's got a pretty good offensive line. I'm looking to the defense. The defense had a great year, especially covering the pass. They got a great secondary there. They just need to put a couple things together, and I think they're going to be in the hunt for the playoffs. But that being said, you got two playoff contenders here in the San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. 49ers take the division. Seahawks coming in as the 6th seed. Both can be dangerous in the playoffs. They're going to meet round one. We'll get to who I like in that matchup later, but the Seahawks had some bumpy starts early on in the year, but I think the Seahawks are kind of clicking at the right time. The 49ers, kind of the same thing. I think they caught on towards the end of the year. Worried a little bit about Carlos Hyde. Not sure that running game can hold up. Colin Kaepernick's wildly inconsistent, but both those teams have the ability to put things together at the end and really make a push. So it'll be exciting to see what those two teams can do going forward. So that's my breakdown of the season. Let's get to the playoff push. First round, you've got in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills and what appears to be the Jacksonville Jaguars on bye. That means your first round matchups are the Cincinnati Bengals versus probably the Cleveland Browns. Your other matchup will be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go Browns will lose to the Bengals. Yes, I said it. The Browns will lose to the Bengals for the third time this year. I think the Bengals' number one overall offense will find a way to win that game. Kansas City and Indianapolis, I like the Colts. Give me the Colts. Give me the ponies. And I'll take them over the Chiefs. I think the Colts are clicking at the right time, and they will win, which will set up a very interesting matchup. Round 2 of Colts, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars. In the NFC, the Lions are on bye week 1, along with the Atlanta Falcons. That sets up the matchup of the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. That will be in San Francisco. And then you've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Panthers. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with the 49ers over Seahawks. I think the 49ers find a way to win. I think the home field advantage proves to be too much for the Seahawks, and the 49ers win that matchup. I'm going to go ahead and take the Carolina Panthers in the upset over the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are still a year away. Those Panthers are battle-tested, and I think they're going to pull it out. Cam Newton has a big day, and that is all she wrote. So that will set up the matchup round 2 of Detroit Lions and the Carolina Panthers. And then you'll have the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers. And with that, that's the end of the predictions for Sonny Weaver. With me being in the playoffs, I'm not going to go any further because it's just going to conclude with me picking myself to win the Super Bowl. We will do another show right before the Super Bowl. Hopefully we can go through the matchups, offense, defense, and key players to that game. Hopefully it'll include the Cincinnati Bengals, but we will wait and see. As always, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to the Verts Podcast. I'd like to thank Player Partner for his segment, Shots Fired. If you guys would like to introduce more segments into the Verts Podcast, make sure to reach out to me, Sonny Weaver, in the Group Me chat. As always, for everybody here at the Verts Podcast, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.